ago, I was born a rich man's son. I had everything that money could buy, but freedom I had none. I've been looking for freedom. I've been looking so long. I've been looking for freedom. Still the search goes on. I've been looking for freedom since I left my hometown. I've been looking for freedom. Still it can't be found. I headed down the track, my baggage on my back. I left the city far behind.
Blood and Black Rum Podcast present Atomic Blonde. Hey guys, welcome back to the Blood and Black Rum Podcast. I'm Ryan from themoonisadeadworld.net, and I'm joined by my co-host Martin.
How's it going?
And today we are back for an extra special episode of the show where we talk again about another action movie. It's kind of becoming the norm for us right now. Covered quite a few in the last few weeks, so hopefully you're into that, or else...
I think the difference is Dread's the action movie.
Dread is the action movie, and the rest of them that we talk about are just... It has some action in it.
Unless it's a Mad
Max film. Well, we have a veteran of a Mad Max film in this one.
John Goodman.
Yeah. Yes. That's exactly who I meant. No, today we're talking about Atomic Blonde, which is in theaters now. It came out this previous Friday. And the theater that we went to had just us in it. So it's doing pretty well at the box office, according to our local theater.
And to be fair though, I like my movies with nobody fucking in it.
No, I totally agree. I'm glad that there was no one there.
Like when we went to see Spider-Man and it was full, like not full.
Yeah,
I've never been to a show
that was actually full there.
No matter
I've never been
what the movie is. I've seen like pretty, like I think 75% I would say is like the highest.
Yeah,
off the top of my head, that I can
and
think of.
Spider-Man wasn't even that close.
No,
Spider-Man was more like
50%.
Yeah. But yeah, even that, just having that many people there, it's like, why you all got to come out when we're coming out?
And maybe it's because I've moved to becoming sort of a critic now because of this foray into podcasting. I used to be someone who never spoke during a film, even like going like with friends. I wouldn't talk or anything. I hate when it's like, hey, what's going on? I was like, shut up and just watch the fucking movie. Now it's like I just want to sit there and kind of like audibly be like, well, that's fucking stupid, or like, oh, that's pretty cool.
You point things out.
Yeah.
And you were doing that quite loudly in this show. We're to the point where I was wondering, like, because we were sitting in the middle of the theater, and so I couldn't really see in the back part of the theater. So I'm hoping, like, I hope no one snuck in here, like, while we were sitting here. And now we're, like, commenting on this very loudly. And they're sitting in the back, like, those fucking assholes up there thinking they're the only ones in the theater.
I'm sure if somebody did, they would have said something.
Yeah, I mean, because it would have then only been us and them.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't even be like there's like quite a few people in there where there would be like that bystander effect where someone would be like, well, maybe someone else will say something. No, they probably would have said something. So, but I was worried for legitimately at the beginning of the film.
Plus, we're funny. Look, if I was in that same situation, if I went to see like a movie with somebody and we're just sitting there watching and someone's commenting on it, but they're actually making funny comments, it wouldn't bother me. I think that would probably have like a good laugh at that. Like,
yeah, but some people's funny is different. So like maybe they wouldn't be thinking like everything that we're saying is funny, and then they wouldn't be listening to the Blood and Black Rum podcast.
Oh, shame on that.
So fuck off to those people. But anyway, I was excited to see Atomic Blonde. It kind of fits within our wheelhouse. We try to do quite a few of the action superhero films that are coming out in theaters right now, and it's a perfect blend. And you also get a little bit of Soviet action there too. So it's something that we've never really covered on the show before.
Well, you can just call it what it is. It's a summer blockbuster.
That is true.
Made on a small budget.
Is it really though a small budget?
$30 million.
So yeah, I guess so.
For a summer blockbuster type film.
Considerably small.
Action film, yeah, no, it's paltry.
Well, but I mean, it's stylish.
Yeah.
For that small amount of money that they invested in it.
Well, at this point, should it really cost you a lot of money to do like fancy overlays and?
No, they probably got the same guy.
From Suicide Squad?
Yeah, like the same guy that's been doing all of them recently.
Probably.
And they're like, what you did for that movie, can you do for us too? Sure, let me just tack it on to the production cost of that one.
Yeah.
I'll just charge them.
I don't see it being like expensive. It's not like they're building like painstaking like miniatures. Like it's like Empire Strikes Back. Like, hey, we gotta have this elaborate miniature set to show. Yeah,
they're just photoshopping graffiti over a video image. So it's probably not super difficult.
Probably out of the $30 million for this film's budget, out of the $30 million, $25 million of it went to song copyrights.
Yeah, that's true. There's quite a few song copyrights in it. Becomes like a huge part of the film. So I'm imagining that there was a vision for those types of films, and they're like, I don't care what you have to spend on this. Get the film right, or get the song rights for this film. And that became like the momentum behind the film. It's not really like, let's make a great plot, let's make a really, dynamic spy thriller. It was more, let's make sure that we've got all of the 80s hits that we want for this film, and also make it look pretty neon too.
Yeah. Well, it's like, what did Ghost in the Shell have? Depeche Mode? We need Depeche Mode too.
No Duran Duran, as we mentioned while we were in the theater.
That's a crime.
It's a travesty.
It is. I love Duran Duran. I'm not ashamed to say that.
No Flock of Seagulls.
No, Flock of Seagulls was in there.
Were they?
Yes, they had Iran playing when the car chase scene was going on.
Must have slipped my mind because the rest of the car chase wasn't that great. No, we're getting a little too far in because I don't want to talk about that stuff yet, and I don't want to demean the film just yet in the beginning of the podcast for sure.
Really, we haven't done that before.
Yeah, we probably have, but I don't want to. Well, that's for things that we just really can't hold off on. But so. I guess the thing that really drew us into Atomic Blonde right off the bat was the trailer. Yeah, that we saw. And we saw that when we saw Wonder Woman, maybe? Was that the first time that we saw it? I feel like it was. Because we were watching Wonder Woman. I already geared up for doing a podcast about a new DC film and really unsure about what we were going to get at that time. And we saw the trailer for Atomic Blonde and we were like,
Which I knew nothing about.
I didn't either.
I didn't even know it was like,
No. I had no idea. And I was like, color me intrigued. Color me neon blue intrigued. Because that looks kind of cool. And Charlize Theron as a lesbian? I'm down. Because that was a big focal point of the trailer itself. I know that the one that we saw was like, general audience's trailer. But I do know that they released a restricted trailer as well. Which I'm assuming capitalized on the amount of boobage and buttage that was in the film related to Charlize Theron and Sophia Boutella. So I think that was, even though, as you said before we started the podcast, that the idea for the lesbianism in the film was not so much to titillate, I think that's bullshit.
No, I think so too.
I think that there was never, for one thing, even though Charlize Theron is listed as a producer on this film, I don't really think there was a consultation with a woman that was like, what do you think about a tasteful lesbian scene in Atomic Blonde? I think it was more so a panel of guys being like, that'd be great, we'd sell. And so I think that the idea that it was in there to sell like a spy thriller type thing or like characterize
especially
a spy.
Especially because it's an action film. Like I'm not saying, women can't like action films, because they can. But, like, have you ever seen, like, it's not like these, I can't, like, recall. Like, even, like, ones that, like, star, like this one, a female lead.
Or Ghost in the Shell, starring a female lead.
That, like, seem directed towards a female, like more of a female audience.
Even Mad Max Fury Road, not so much a female audience.
I would say. See, like with like Ghost in the Shell and Fury Road, like see, it's either I think like for an action film, the marketing is like either male or both, unisex. It's not like they're like focusing towards like they're never gonna focus towards females because it's like it's just not where the demographic lies.
Right.
It's kind of like how people might get a little bitchy about and angry about this, but it's like with like some video games and like people are like oh Grand Theft Auto, you know, they got strippers and hookers and you get to beat them up. It's like a male power driven fantasy and like, you know, takes away from females. It's like the demographics that's not what they're going for. You know, like certain things, it's like it's not what they're going for. It's up to you to decide if you want to consume, you know, the media. If it's not to your liking, then it wasn't targeted towards you.
True.
I don't think especially a lot of media these days is really interested in trying to persuade people who might be like iffy on it. It's about all right, this is what we know. Again, that's why they have, you know, pre-screenings and all that, you know, target demoing and all that stuff, because it's like, all right, this is what we think our audience is going to be. So, and I think that, like, you know, applies to action film. It's not like when you see, like, The Notebook, they're like, you know, men are really going to want to see this too. You know, your average male is from Alabama. Yeah. It doesn't be like, wow.
I mean, clearly those types of films too, rom-coms, are really not targeted towards men.
No, that's what I'm saying. It's either like you can like make it unisex, like, it's fun for both, you know, like, you know, there'll be something in there like for both, like, you know, sensibilities, or it's leaning towards another. There's, you know.
Yeah, and I think that's pretty much how Atomic Blonde went, was that it was heavily leaning towards a male dynamic, a male audience that would be very interested in seeing, first of all, a bunch of like 80s pop songs fit to action sequences.
Which again, I think that's like target demo. That's our demographic.
True. And also we're making a swing back towards 80s culture and pop, you know, pop songs are kind of mimicking the 80s style. So
I've said before on the podcast, like the stuff's cyclical. Like, you know how like in the 90s you had almost like for like a year and a half a like 60s revolution, you know, coming back, like the Austin Powers and, you know, Oasis and like the style of clothing and stuff, and then like a little bit of the 70s and the 2000s, and, you know, earlier in the decade a little bit of the 90s too. It's all cyclical. Like, it all eventually like they like take like old things and kind of like, ooh, you know.
Yeah, and I mean that's exactly what Atomic Blonde does. It kind of like
hell, and I was thinking too, and even 90s too, you had like fucking mini 50s renaissance with like, you know, the like zoot suits and swing music. You had like, it wasn't just Lou Bega. There's like like 3 or 4 different swing songs that, you know.
Oh yeah, like
Zoot Suit Riot being another one.
Yeah, the Stray Cats and things like that.
Really, they're more 80s, but
yeah, I mean, definitely. This is again really hearkening to that, and it fits really well within the whole dynamic that stuff like Suicide Squad set up earlier, with that sort of neon-esque Borderlands overlay of text and kind of a stylistic decision to make it
graphic novel.
Yeah. Well, basically, and I mean, it makes sense.
Which the film is based off of.
The film is based off of it, but there's definitely that inspiration, or I maybe not even inspiration, but just, you know, decision to help sell the film and fit it within the context of what we've already seen previously from films of this nature. So there's all that, but with that said, it did rope us in. Both of us were intrigued by it, and so we thought that would be a perfect episode for the podcast, and so here we are, talking about Atomic Blonde.
I actually thought it for once, like usually when I see like trailers for action films, like you get really like, ugh. I actually thought the trailer for, not just because like, ooh, lesbians, ooh, you know. I thought like overall, like the action and all of it, I thought it actually, like, this actually looks like it might be actually a fun film.
Like a good mix of
not saying it's going to be the smartest film out there. It actually looked like, hey, this is actually going to be a fun film. Not like you're seeing Transformers 7 with Mark Wahlberg, like, what's going on again? How you doing, dog?
Right, I like to call that a good mix of plot and action. Not so much Transformers films that shit blows up.
Not even plot, I'd say just more just atmosphere.
Yeah, that too, because it's got the 89 atmosphere of being in Berlin, and it's pretty kind of cool. Which it looked interesting from your history standpoint of being well versed in history and potential history teacher material over there.
Show this in the classroom.
That's right. Well, I guess we'll talk about if you recommend it as a historical piece of education. All right, so let's take a break. We'll come back. We're going to talk about some of the beer that we've had over the past few days because we have a new one on the show, and I did have a few while I was on my mini vacation in Maryland.
This 5th of the year.
So stay tuned for that.
Hi, this is Derek from The Wild Pitch, and I'd like to talk to you about something that's very important to me. My podcast, The Wild Pitch. Now, since you clearly don't have access to a skip button, listen to this.
Eat as many brats as possible.
And this.
An in-home cat communication system that allows your feline friends to talk to you through a series of intricate bell rings and button presses.
And how about that?
I imagine it would be about as satisfying as drinking orange juice after having a burrito.
Find us on iTunes, Stitcher, Google, I don't know, stare into the sun and you might hear it. It'll buzz in your ears.
All right, so the beer that we've got on tonight is actually from Maryland because I brought it back with me because I went to a gigantic beer, liquor, and wine store in Maryland, and it pretty much had everything that you could possibly be looking for in terms of any type of liquor. Wine, whiskey, whole aisles worth of that shit. Any type of wine that you're looking for, they've got an entire section full of it. It's amazing.
We don't have that around
You can
here.
tell I'm a country bumpkin because I went down there and I saw a fucking Wegmans with 2 floors and I just pretty much went ape shit, my mouth hanging on the ground.
See, and I told you didn't believe, because there is Wegmans in central and western New York, and I've been to like a couple, and I told you it's like I was skeptical too. And we brought it up on the podcast before. Like people have said, like, you don't know what Wegmans is? I'm like, no, what the fuck's Wegmans? Like, what kind of butt fuck town are you from? And I'm like, well, we have Price Chopper in Hannaford. Mm-hmm. And then I actually went to one. It's like, my God, like, Jesus Christ, it is Disneyland.
It's amazing. They have
huge
a food court. They've got double aisles because they have like an aisle and then there's another like horizontal aisle and then there's another set of vertical aisles. And it's like, you have double aisles here. It's amazing. It's like a warehouse full of food. If you ever needed like a place to stay out during the apocalypse, you go to a Wegmans.
I would almost say not, because I'm sure probably most people would say that. It'd probably be a total fucking free-for-all.
Okay, then you just go to our Price Chopper and you got it all to yourself.
Or Grand Union.
Yeah. No, but so the Wegmans was crazy. This liquor store was crazy.
Which, we should preface too, up here in New York, we don't have liquor stores that sell liquor and beer.
Not generally. I mean, they may cross over, but not real. I mean, there's not really a big push to have both liquor and beer in the same store.
I've never seen it. I think they're two separate permits.
I mean, I feel like they'd sell
Because
some
if that was
beer.
because if that was the case, then like Stewart's around here would also sell like we got our own brand whiskey too.
Well, I think that there are a couple. I've been in one that's in Amsterdam. It's a beer and liquor store. They sell both. But it's not common just because of I would say there's probably not as much crossover. I mean, you might have two in the same plaza, but you may not.
Well, no, you're right. Like
Yeah.
they'll be located next to each other, but they're not in the same store.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure this one in Amsterdam has both that I've been in. But yeah, it's not very common. So
And that's because too you can get alcohol at the grocery store and
You can.
in convenience stores.
yeah, and in Maryland that is not the case.
And you can buy it on Sundays, like thank God. I would hate to like
if you really
football.
need it on Sundays, you can't do it in some states. They won't let you.
Well, football Sunday. Come on,
I know.
And
It doesn't make sense. It's crazy.
And it's stupid too, because the South, football's worshipped down in the South. Well, Billy Bob, you better, bought your 30 packs of Busch and Bud Light.
Well, I'm just glad that we don't have that problem, but I do wish that we had this store because it's amazing. it has like pretty much every beer that I could think of that I would be looking for. You can get it in packs, you can get it in singles. I picked up the Stone Ghost Hammer IPA just because I've never seen it before. And it was in their seasonal section, so it must be pretty new. And I dug that one quite a bit. I think I gave it like a 4.5 on my Untapped. Because
You actually gave it a written review, too.
Yeah, it's a really good... It's got a very odd and distinct character to it that I liked quite a bit. And it's not super heavy either. It's named after the night shift workers at Stone Brewery who have to deal with the clanging of pipes because the pipes expand during the night and makes a ghostly hammering sound, i.e. the Ghost Hammer IPA. So if you can find that, check it out because it's really good. I would recommend it. And we don't get a lot of Stone down here, so...
We get an Arrogant Bastard.
We get Arrogant Bastard, and that's it. So I was really interested in trying this, and it tickled my fancy for sure. The other thing that I tried down there was the Heavy Seas Tropicana, which is a grapefruit and blood orange style IPA. And it was very heavy on both the blood orange and the grapefruit, which is kind of a different story from the ones that we've had on the show, because a lot of times there's that overpowering hop nature to these IPAs, and they barely have any blood orange or grapefruit. But I would say that's pretty much the opposite for this Heavy Seas brew. The Tropicana features a lot of citrus flavor to it, and then there's only just a tad bit of hops towards the end of the drink. So it's almost like a fruit juice in a way. Like as you're drinking it, it's very, very, very fruity, and then you get that hop character towards the end. So it was a very interesting mix that I got down there in Maryland. But the one that I brought back for us today is from Denizens Brewing Company, and that is in Silver Spring, Maryland. And these come in a 4-pack, 16-ounce cans, little tall boys there. And it is called the Lowest Lord English Style ESB Ale. Now, if you've listened to the podcast previously, you know that we talk a lot about ESBs, but we never really have one on the show because they're not very common anymore. Not very many people make them year round or like even in seasonal packs. So it's not something that we have on here very often. But I think
we've had it on here.
I don't know if we've ever had one on here.
No.
Which is unfortunate because we like them quite a bit. They are a very tasty blend of like an English style ale and a pale ale. They kind of come together, and there's not really a huge separation between what's considered like an American pale ale and an English pale ale. Like there's, I don't know if I would even categorize them as such. They're very, very similar. But the ESB just has a little bit of a different quality to it with its malts, because an English ale, if you've ever had it, is somewhat different than what we consider an ale in the United States. They have different characters to them, and I almost prefer like the ESB to the American Pale Ale.
Well, because the American Pale Ale's got more of a hop characteristic to
It's almost become overpowering with all the hop flavor that they've been putting in pale ales now.
I mean, an English style pale ale is more, for the most part, is more balanced with malts and hop.
It's nuanced.
Yeah, good use of the word nuanced. Because I'm talking about the difference in the difference between like an English style, and I mean an extra special bitter in ESB. Between that and ESB and a pale ale, the difference isn't much. I mean, to me though, I'd say the main difference is just kind of an overall the malty characteristic of it, like how malty the beer comes across. Like even though like a English style pale ale has a better balance between hops and malt than say an American pale ale, which is more hop forward. I'd say an ESB is a little bit more malty. You get like the best of both worlds. It's malty, but it also does have a hop characteristic too, where you get both of them kind of in a strong but not overwhelming presence. So like the hop characteristic in this is very forward and present in the front, but it's not overly hoppy. It's not like an IPA.
Yeah.
and then you get that nice malty, bready taste to it at the end. That's more reminiscent of like a regular ale or like even like a porter almost.
Yeah. I would say with Denizens, though, this Lowest Lord ESB, there's almost a stout presence to the feel of the beer.
The mouthfeel.
The mouthfeel of it. And even in some ways, the taste of it was very kind of biscuity taste to it. But mostly in the mouthfeel, this almost tastes like it has a widget in it, like a Guinness can. Because it is so creamy on the mouth. It sounds suggestive here.
Let's say, which when you drink a pale ale, I never drank a pale ale before, whether it be an American style pale ale or an English style pale ale. I'm like, ooh, that's nice and creamy. You know?
So this has almost like, somewhat of a stout characteristic. I would say that the end of this beer does have more of the hoppy character that comes out.
For me, it's the front.
Oh, really? The front of it has more of your hoppy character for you?
To me, the front is totally hop forward. So, like, for me, my taste palate-wise is hop forward, and then you get the maltiness, the breadiness, and then the finishing touches that, creamy mouthfeel.
Yeah, I can see. I can see the hop being at the front of it, depending on how you are tasting with your palate.
This is almost showing exactly how people like describing, drinks and stuff as total bullshit.
It's very different for everybody.
Do you taste the hints of fig and clove?
Well, the Denizens can says that the tasting characters are floral, herbal,
which, by the
coffee,
way,
and biscuit. I don't get a floral taste to it by far. Not very much at all.
I think by that it's supposed to be the hops. But floral is such a... All beers, like, even like if you're drinking like a fucking Pilsner now, like, here's a floral characteristic to this beer.
When I think floral, I think like chamomile.
Well, no,
something like that.
Or no, I agree. Like that's what I would think too. But like again, that's what I'm saying. It's a catchword. It's just like thrown in. Like it's not just them. It's everybody. You could have a Pilsner Urkel, and they're like, this beer has a nice floral character. It's like It's like, oh, you mean the grass like that? You got used to burn to.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I don't get much of a floral tasting note from this one, but definitely hoppy and also heavily malty, and with that, almost stout-like mouthfeel. Very interesting blend, I would say, and I like it quite a bit. I think it's a very tasty beer.
No, I agree. This is if it hadn't been 90 degrees the past 4 days, I would say this is absolutely great. This is like a perfect fall beer.
Yeah, it really is. I'm pleasantly surprised, especially since we just went to the store yesterday after we saw Atomic Blonde, and you couldn't find anything because you were so dispirited and bored with beers around here lately.
Well,
so
it's either watermelon. I don't like watermelon beers. No, thank you. Because I don't really care for the taste of watermelon, and I think artificial watermelon's even miles worse. IPAs that I've said 1,000 times. I'm again. It's not that I don't like IPA. I'm just IPA'd out. Like if I were to see like, hey, we got a new pale ale, I'd hop on that in a second. Even if it's just like a standard American pale ale or a standard English pale ale, because like, wow, that's a rare Pokemon right there.
Yeah.
That's why I've been like buying like Miller Lite of late, like just constantly, because it's like, well, there's nothing in the craft market right now around here that I really care, spend a lot of money on, because it's all just the same stuff. So I'm like, I'll just drink Miller Lite then, I guess.
Yeah.
Have my cheaper beer and just kind of enjoy being relaxed, refreshed and not totally disappointed.
So I'm glad that I was able to find this because it was a hit.
Next week we're doing Colt 45.
Yeah, going back to the 40s. All right, so
we should do a film from the 40s while drinking.
Drinking a 40, you do 40s month. Amazing.
Try different. Like this week we got Old English. This week we got Colt 45. This week we got Hurricane.
Oh, I'm sure you could find plenty of 40s to do. You would not run out.
Around here, you would have an endless supply.
Yeah. So that would not be that fun. I don't think.
No, I hate
It'd
malt.
be miserable.
I hate malt
miserable.
I hate malt liquor.
All right, let's take a break. We'll come back and we will talk about Atomic Blonde.
Thank you for seeing me today, Doctor.
Of course. I see you're having some issues.
Yeah, it all started when I ran out of podcasts to listen to. I felt anxious, alone, and even scared.
It happens all too often. Podcast deficiency disorder. It can be a serious struggle with no answer in sight. Until now.
Introducing Nerdy Words from Geek Productions. Through intense peer review studies, the Nerdy Words team have developed the perfect formula to finally defeat all symptoms of PDD.
With just one episode a week, your feelings of helplessness through lack of podcast satisfaction will be a thing of the past. With heavy doses of off-the-cuff, barely put-together thoughts about all things nerdy and beyond, your PDD will melt away.
Side effects include frustration at hosts' inability to accurately quote facts, annoyance at their often bitchy attitudes, and inability to understand them through their drunken slurs every 5 episodes. Do not listen if you are nursing, pregnant, or may become pregnant.
Comics, movies, anime, video games, and much, much more with Nerdy Words. Fridays on acepodcastnetwork.com.
Thanks for sticking with us. We're back to talk about Atomic Blonde. So, Atomic Blonde is basically about, and I don't know if I should say this right off the bat or not to ruin anybody's chance at seeing the film, but it's about a double agent. I don't know if you know that about spy thrillers, but generally there's a double agent in the mix, and Atomic Blonde really fits that to a T. And then it goes further than that, but we'll talk about that in a little bit.
That's where it goes. Atomic.
Yeah,
Wait, I lied.
No,
That's where it goes blonde.
I wish that I had like sound effects set up for this, because then I'd just do like a badoom-ch. Or maybe not even that, because that pun does not even deserve that.
This is a great one.
No, I wouldn't. It goes atomic. No,
No, that's worth the rim shot.
No, I don't know. I don't think it would even be worth a rim shot. It's lower than that.
Well, that's what that is. It's a rim shot. Mr.
That's
Drummer.
the lowest of the low. No, I'm saying it doesn't even deserve a rim shot. It's lower than that. The pun is worse than that.
No, that's a great
The pun deserves like a wah, wah, wah,
No,
like that.
that's a good pun.
But I don't have sound effects set up, so you're saved for this week.
I don't know what makes you the holy arbiter of puns, because you're not funny. All the humor from the show comes from me, so
Okay.
you're more of the analytics.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. As someone incorrectly pointed out when I was doing a Justin Long impression, giving you credit for it in our Jeepers Creepers episode, you're not the humor.
I just accepted it because
you want.
I was fine with it.
Yeah,
I was
because
cool
you
with it.
didn't fucking do anything.
I was cool with it. I was
like everything around
I
here.
let it go.
Like everything around here, you don't do anything. You just take credit for it.
Oh, I do everything else related to the show, so don't go there with that. No. But Atomic Blonde is based on a graphic novel called The Coldest City. And
Sounds like a Frank Miller story.
Yeah, it does. Basically, it sounds like a noir-esque spy thriller based on 1989, the fall of the Berlin Wall, separating East and West Berlin. For all the youngsters out there, yes, there was an East and West Berlin. And it was a huge deal in 1989, which is why they got David Hasselhoff to sing at the fall of the Berlin Wall.
If you didn't get the reference from the intro.
Yeah, exactly. But basically, Atomic Blonde takes place before and during the fall of the Berlin Wall, as Charlize Theron's character is caught up in this sort of spy game where she's tasked with finding this watch that has a whole bunch of spy information on it that she doesn't want to fall in the wrong hands. And when I say she, I basically mean MI6, who's funding this mission and who needs her to get this watch back at all costs. She's fitted with, a partner by by the name of, and I'm going to draw a blank here, David Percival, and that's played by James McAvoy. Basically, their task is to infiltrate, and cross between East and West Berlin, because they've got to track down anybody who may have had encounters with the watch itself. And that basically leads them to Soviets, and it leads them to a Soviet boss leader who KGB leader who may have the watch. And basically, it's kind of a wild goose chase to find this one watch that has all this information, and then also protect a guy who has memorized the entire contents of the watch.
Who's a defector?
Yes, he is, and pretty much everybody who's not part of MI6 wants him dead. So I would say that in terms of a spy thriller, Atomic Blonde has the plot for it. It definitely has an intriguing premise that works in its favor.
Well, it's a trope, though. There's been several plots throughout, like spy films and spy, espionage TV, where it's there's some kind of intel or information out there where it lists every known agent out there and their actual identity and all that kind of information that would make them trackable and, possibly be given up and killed.
But there's a reason that's a trope, because it works. It's interesting.
Well, no, I'm not disagreeing with that. I'm just not saying it's not treading any new ground with that.
No.
I mean, again, this is a summer blockbuster film, so again, I'm not expecting it to be, like, what a twist, like a great spy game thriller with it. I'm just saying the overall premise, it's been done quite a bit before.
Sure. I think that probably this film's its biggest downfall is the method of telling that plot, though. Because it makes heavy use of flashbacks, as Charlize Theron's character, Lorraine, is telling this story about her finding the watch to both MI6 and CIA being played by none other than John Goodman, one of our favorite character performers of all time.
And as I pointed out to you, our favorite actors are all J names. John Goodman, Jeff Daniels, John Saxon, Jeff Goldblum. Something about
Jeff Bridges. Yeah, no, I was just kidding. I was just naming the next J name that came to mind. Josh Hartnett.
Yes.
Yeah, that one's a definite.
Oh yeah.
I think that though this film, so Atomic Blonde is really, it's working in, it's actually in present day. I don't mean present day as in 2017, but present day as in after this has all happened. Charlize Theron's character Lorraine is being interviewed by both MI6 and CIA to figure out what the hell happened during this time where she was hunting down the watch and working with David Percival and attempting to transport the defector named Spyglass to the opposite end of Berlin. She's telling this to them, and that's kind of how we're getting the story through her veiled comments and her description to the interviewers. And I think that adds a layer of complication that's really unnecessary for Atomic Blonde. The story itself is already sort of convoluted. And as any storyline is, when you have people that are, double-crossing others, and there's multiple affiliations within different groups.
No one is trustworthy.
Yep, no one is trustworthy. There's always that level of, convolution, and that's kind of inherent to a spy thriller. At the same time, when you add in the fact that we're now getting the story told to us by Lorraine, who is in herself an unreliable narrator, there's an added level of confusion and unnecessary convolution that really doesn't add much to the plot whatsoever.
It's not like it's not like the confusion can be a bad thing. Again, it's always, to have red herrings and, being misleading the audience. It's all, though, if it's done well.
With
Usual Suspects, what makes it so great is because the twist at the end for the time, and Kevin Spacey being the unreliable narrator and giving that whole interview with the police about what happened and who Kaiser Soze really is, it's done well, and it builds and builds, and then you find out oh, he was bullshitting, he was lying, he was unreliable, he is, it's so tricking the audience is fine and dandy. You just got to be artful and tactful about it in a way that's not it's either too easy to pick up on, or it's I don't give a shit about what's going on with that part.
I think, unfortunately for Atomic Blonde, there's a little bit of both going on there.
And there definitely is in this both. It's obviously,
spoilers. I guess we should throw that out there now. Spoilers, if you haven't seen Atomic Blonde, don't listen through the rest of this episode, I guess, because you're inevitably going to hear the actual crux of the film.
But at the same time, again, if you know anything just about kind of how storytelling these days goes, it's of course
right. It's kind of foreseen, but I still want to throw the spoilers out there just to make sure that no one is really heavily going into Atomic Blonde thinking I don't want to know anything. Don't let them say Blood and Black Rum podcast ruined it for them. But so spoilers for that. But anyways, yeah, what you were saying, it's kind of it's not really a surprise when it comes out that the person that Lorraine's supposed to be working with the most, her partner in this, David Percival, is actually a guy that's been setting her up the whole time and working with the KGB to get this watch. And I would say that it's not really so much of a big deal that we can see this coming.
You see it from the first second you meet him, because he's as I said, he's a fucking walk-off from Green Street Hooligans. Soccer fight, going to get drunk and fight, piss and rowdy and all that after the fucking Tottenham game.
He's a regular old bloke.
Yeah.
And but I don't know that you don't know that from the very beginning.
Just the way he is, but again, just the way you can tell, okay, yeah, he's gonna be shifty.
He's gonna be something.
He's not gonna be something. He's not trustworthy.
Yeah,
and then
he stands out.
And then when when Charlize Theron realizes, which by the way, we're supposed to be having a counter if we have how many times we mispronounce her name. Forgot about that.
Mm-hmm.
But when she realizes, that he's been keeping, setting her up and having the KGB tail her and stuff, and when she finally catches up to him and kills him, because you're supposed to think he's the double agent. He's the one that what the code word was, Satchel, the double agent that's been working
both for MI6 and then
in the KGB. But for the KGB. And it makes sense because, he's been selling secrets to the KGB. Because he wants to keep the balance of power. Of, of what's going on. But then we find out it wasn't him. Yeah, he was doing all that stuff, but he wasn't actually the double agent. He was just a shitty person.
Yeah, he was just a bad guy that apparently wanted the watch for himself. It's not even really, there's not much to go on for this character because we already know almost from the very beginning that he's not working with Lorraine, that there's something going on about him. So I think that the biggest problem with Atomic Blonde is not only that we can see you can see the twist coming, but it's not even really a twist at all, and it's like the whole film is leading up to that for no apparent reason.
But it's not even that though. Again, we know early in the film that he met with Spyglass, and the defector that had memorized everything on that watch, all the agent's information, and he had met with him to try to get Percival to get him across the East German border into West Germany. And then, like, 20 minutes later, when Percival finally meets Charlize Theron, he's like, oh, I never met the bloke. So, like, you already know, like, he's lying to her. He's, withholding information.
You know it quickly, yeah.
But again, at the same time, like, the whole, like, oh, no, we find out, oh, Charlize Theron's she's actually Satchel. She had it all set up. That she, was actually working with the KGB.
Right.
And then we find out, no, she wasn't. She's a triple agent.
She's actually a triple agent.
She's working for CIA.
I mean, that's, like I said, with the plot being so convoluted and so unnecessarily jumpy with its flashbacks and flashbacks. You not only do you go back in time, but then you go back further in time because for whatever reason you need to know what she was told by MI6 previously. That all doesn't add up to anything that really makes it necessary for us to have those moments.
I'd be fine more with that whole direction if it wasn't done through like the whole interview style. Like the whole, like, we gotta do like a Tarantino style.
Yeah.
Like jumping
I think that's my biggest issue too. I don't care that we know that David Percival has something going on right away. I don't care that it's pretty easy to figure out that David Percival is probably going to be a double agent. I don't care even that, it's pretty evident that Charlize Theron is probably at least a double agent and most likely a triple agent or working with multiple organizations. I don't even care that all of that is really pretty evident from the very beginning of the film. What I care about is that the breaks in the film, in the action, where we jump forward in time to present time, where Charlize's character Lorraine is being interviewed, I care that those moments really take you out of the whole rest of the film. They take you out of the action. They unnecessarily give you information that you already can glean from just watching what's happening during the story. And it just unnecessarily adds confusion to an otherwise pretty straightforward film about a spy thriller film for sure, but one that most people could easily parse if they have any sort of knowledge of how a spy thriller goes.
One of my main problems too is it doesn't really explain. Like, again, like, she's a triple. So at the end, you find out she's a triple agent. She's been working for the CIA and been partnered with John Goodman the entire time, playing MI6 and the KGB off each other. What I don't like is just like how she just like says after she kills the one Russian KGB agent in Paris when they meet, Bremovich, how she's like, I just want my life back, and I wasn't gonna give you the list, and I'm Satchel, and I know you already knew that I was gonna betray you. What I don't like is after, like, when he shoots, like, she kills everyone in the scene. It's like a cool little action scene. My main problem is that, like, the whole part of that, it's like a bad Lupin movie. One of the bad Lupin TV specials, or like a bad episode of Lupin, where at the end it's like, well, how did Lupin get out of that? I knew everything ahead of time. I'm the mastermind. But you don't actually get to see, like, how all that came together. By the end, it's like, okay, she's a triple agent, but it's like, you don't really see how, like, okay, how is that all masterminded? How did...
Right.
You don't get anything behind that. She's like, yeah, I knew the whole, like,
It's, there's kind of like a deus ex machina here to all of what Lorraine does, in that she just seems to be, like, unstoppable. Throughout all of Atomic Blonde, she's just overpowered, and she really, even though she's getting thrown around by, like, 300-pound guys.
But it's not even, like, a problem, because that's mostly, if you look back at, like the Bond films, I'm a big James Bond fan. I mean, most of the Bond films, Bond's pretty, there are very few instances within the Bond canon that you're sitting there kind of like, oh, you kind of feel like he's actually in danger. There's like none of the Roger Moore Bond films, you're sitting like, oh, he might die in here. You don't get any of that. You get that in, like, On Her Majesty's Secret Service, like Jordan Lazenby, but for the most part, you never really experience that. So I'm fine with, like, the whole, like, they establish her to be because they even say, like, she's an escape artist. Which, as I told you, they should have just made her goddamn code name like Houdini. She just, is able to like, oh, I'm kind of fucked right now, and, whoop, able to fight out of, like an 8-man struggle.
Right.
And I'm fine, and I have no problem suspending my disbelief and accepting that from, like, it's an action movie. I have no problem with that. My problem is, like, when you, like, have the reveal, like, she's a triple agent and she's been working for the CIA, and you're like, okay, I'm fine with that twist, but how did you get there?
Right.
And really, the only clue, but this is the big clue of the film that tips you off to that, is the only real clue that they give you to that she's been working for the CIA. There's a scene in the middle of the film where she's at the Berlin Wall on the west side. And she's talking to John Goodman. Because she was sent on this mission by MI6 to find Percival, to have him locate the watch and figure out who Satchel is, and to find Spyglass and get him out of there. So the only real hint that's saying, like, she's actually working, like, has ties to some kind of tie to the CIA for the most part of the film is, why is she talking to John Goodman?
Yeah, it doesn't really, the film...
Because there's no reason, because there is no reason for John Goodman to be there, because when she's talking to John Goodman about what's going on and how he's saying you need to get this done ASAP because this is going to be a new country pretty soon, things are changing. Yeah, there's no reason for why is he there?
Yeah, it doesn't
He's not working with MI6. When she gets sent the mission, it's not like, the CIA is here getting with us too to cooperate on this mission. He's just there.
Yeah, it doesn't give you any inkling why they would be meeting there. Like, there's no reason for it besides him giving her more information from CIA rather than MI6 or anything like that.
Or Percival, so...
All right, so I don't want to spend that much time on the plot, but to really sum up, the plot is probably the most problematic part of this film. I don't think it's particularly a good enough spy thriller to warrant some of the extraneous information that we're given within the context of, like, her explaining her mission to MI6 and CIA. There's just not enough there that really makes it worth the effort and worth the confusion that creates. With that said, what did you think of the action sequences in this film?
I think it's really good. I think the action sequences of this film are really good. I think most of this film is pretty high octane. It's action.
Yeah, I think it's more more action oriented towards the middle to end of the film. I found that the opening parts of the film were a little bit slow. I thought, like, the first maybe half hour, 45 minutes are a little slow, and then after that it starts to pick up.
I'm not saying it's Fury Road.
No, I know. I know that. But I just thought that a little bit of it was kind of slow, but once it gets going, it does start to pick up speed.
But overall, quickly. Even like that, I think the action scenes in this film are really well done.
Yeah, I agree. I think they have some interesting action bits to it. Like, there's a whole kind of like rope scene aspect, that they have with kind of actually is reminiscent of a Wonder Woman's type lasso. But there's a rope scene to it. There's a
that's been done 1,000 times.
No, I agree. There's
of tying a rope to somebody, then jumping off a balcony, and then have their body dragged and slammed into the rail, and so they can, kind of.
Yeah, it's a great moment though. I think that the fight scenes are choreographed really well. I think the best scene by far in this is the stairwell scene. That's pretty much a long cut of fighting in the stairwell, and then afterwards in a an apartment complex, like a room that has pretty much all destructible environment to it. That almost seems somewhat improvised for this film specifically because of the long cuts for each of the action scenes. Like these scenes go on for long periods of time without cutting, and that's a really difficult thing to do, especially for action, in terms of like everything has to be blocked out the correct way, and making sure that everybody hits in the right spot. Really impressive. So I can't imagine like how many times they would actually run through these scenes like full tilt, You know, like, all right, we're gonna throw you into this the 15th dresser that we've built for this. You know what I mean? Something like that. Seems very improvised in the way that that's done. But I think it's really well. Charlize Theron does a lot of her own stunts. I don't know.
It's awesome.
I mean, for the most part, every stunt that you see is clearly her in that stunt. So it's great. I mean, she does a great job with this. And I would say for the majority of Atomic Blonde, she's really leading the way for this film. She's the strong character that and the strong actor that does the work in this, and she's a great presence in this film. Really well done for all of her action sequences. I think that stairwell scene to me is one of the most fantastic, of just out and out ridiculous like action scenes, throwing people downstairs.
Well, only that, the people she's fighting, it's like, man, these people of very hardy German and Russian stock. She stabs them in the throat like 4 times, like knocks lamps into their heads, beats the shit out of them, shoots them in the gut twice, and they're still coming back for more. And it's like, Jesus Christ.
Don't
like,
fucking mess with the KGB. Yeah. That's the theme of the movie here.
No,
for layman's.
Well, that's what the Soviets would have you to say, like, hey,
that's right.
Don't fuck with Mother Russia, huh? You know.
But I mean, I think those scenes are really strong. Every action scene in here is a really great set piece for this film, and it's almost like the plot is kind of just shuttling the viewer along until you get to the next action sequence.
But that's fine.
No, I think it's fine, but I just think that it's unfortunate that the plot couldn't be just a little bit stronger, because I do like the action scenes. One thing I will say about the action scenes that really got kind of grated on me after a while is the fact that most of them are set to 80s soundtracks.
Well, I instantly pointed that out. Of how, like, because they'd have it like audible, like an audible, like, song from the 80s, like, especially the late 80s blasting, and then, like, they do like a shift in the scene, and all of a sudden now it's more muted. Like, oh, it's actually going on in the background of what's happening.
Right.
Like when you had like in the opening with the KGB agent running down the British agent and getting the watch originally, and you got the song playing loudly, and then as soon as he opens the car door, then it's muted. Like, oh, it's coming from the car. It's like, that's fucking annoying.
Yeah, I will say that despite the fact that I really enjoy Neon 80s, I like synth pop soundtracks, I like that throwback, I felt like a lot of the song styles and choices in Atomic Blonde didn't fit in very well. I wasn't a fan of music every single time an action scene.
I thought it fit in well. I just don't think you needed it as prevalent as it was.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that I shouldn't say every, because
the stairwell scene did not.
Right, there are a few scenes that do not have a soundtrack to them, and to their benefit, I think they didn't need them, and that's why they worked so well, because they didn't have that. All of the scenes that do, and they're pretty much front loaded to the beginning of the film. It became sort of like a distraction that. Okay, there's this song playing while she's fighting people. The song almost was a distraction to actually watching the action, because I don't know, I just found it to be it took me out of that immersion. I was not super thrilled with some of the, and like I said, I don't mind the soundtrack itself. The soundtrack wasn't bad. It definitely steals from a lot of like the 80s golden music, and really, if there's one thing that I would criticize about it, is that there's not enough deep cuts on the soundtrack. Most of it is very if you think of 80s songs that fit into this style,
late 80s
style, you probably will think of the ones that are in this film. I think that's the only issue with it, is that I wish they would just go a little bit further.
The only two that
what you said were mostly, the top hits of the.
Oh no, like
period.
I said, they literally, like, from like 87 to 89 probably took a Billboard Top 200 chart. Like, all right, let's pick our songs.
Yeah, I mean,
outside of Under Pressure, which does not fit at the end. That's
True.
And London Calling when she's going to Paris. Those two things are like, oh my God, really? It's like kind of like they threw them in there. But other than that, like the soundtrack, I think fits well with the tone and the style of the film. I think they just over rely on it a bit too much. Like I'm fine with like the whole car chase scene. Like they started playing Iran. I thought by a flock of seagulls. I thought that was pretty, nice and nifty. And the whole scene where the KGB agent is beating beats a fucking German teenager to death with a skateboard with 99 Luftballons playing. Like, that fit well within tone.
That's another problem, though. You mentioned 99 Luftballons, and that's used twice, and that gets on me, too.
I was fine with the first time.
The first time's okay. The second time, that's
it's stupid because
more
it's
downbeat.
Well, because it's a remix, and it just doesn't fit what's going on. It's kind of like, oh, we're heading into the third act. We just got to, because it's like we just got, it's like you just got done with the second act. So it's like, okay, so we're kind of at like the down point of.
I wasn't a big fan of reusing that song.
No, I wasn't either. But again, like I said, like at certain points, it works well. Like I'm fine with like the opening with like how they had like that 80s sound. Like I can't remember. I'm trying to remember because like I said, they played so many songs.
So many songs. Yeah.
I've lost track. Like I've lost track of like some of them. So like in the opening though, it fit really well with what was going on. But then as soon as he opened the door, like it's like the radio in the car. It's like that's fucking stupid. And they did the same thing with A Flock of Seagulls when they did the car chase, and then after the car flips and all that, then it's like it goes back to being more muted in the foreground instead of prevalent. It's like you can have it like just like have it one way or the other. Don't.
Well, I think your biggest issue with that is that it doesn't make sense for one thing. The music would not be loud, and then when you step out of the car, then get muted. It just kind of seems backwards in this scenario.
Well, no, I mean the way it was sounding from the car when he opens the door makes sense, but at the same time, it's when the song's playing before that.
Exactly.
It's not that you're hearing it from the perspective of the car. You're hearing it from the perspective of like. This is the soundtrack to the film, and then as soon as you open... it would have been totally cool for him to be running the fucking MI6 agent down with it just sounding like he's in the car, like that on the radio.
Yeah, exactly.
That totally would have been fine.
And then it can open up afterwards, but... It's kind of the backwards way of doing that.
You're doing it ass backwards.
Yeah, I agree. I think the soundtrack is a little bit problematic there, too. And
no Duran Durans.
That's true, yeah. So we haven't talked about, first of all, the stylistic choices of the film in terms of the neon lighting, which plays in heavily, during clubbing scenes.
Film in the 80s.
Basically, the hotel that Charlize Theron's character Lorraine is staying at.
What room did she get?
Yeah, the best room apparently. MI6 pays for things, and they basically just like write a blank check.
The honeymoon suite,
Yeah, really, for real.
For rave driven.
I gotta say that I'm a huge fan of the neon and very colorful cinematography. So in this sense, Atomic Blonde fits in with my aesthetics. I think that it works pretty well. And I don't think that the neon's overused, because I do think you get a good juxtaposition between the neon styles of like where Charlize Theron's character is staying and then the kind of gritty downtown areas of Berlin that are obviously not ideal for anybody, which would be why they're lobbying so much for the Berlin Wall to come crumbling down because of the KGB influence in the areas.
Specifically East Berlin.
Right, exactly. I think that works really well because there is that juxtaposition, and they don't overuse the neon lighting. It's in certain areas, but only in those moments where it's necessary, like clubbing scenes where Lorraine and the French operative, Delphine LaSalle, who's played by Sophia Boutella, they're meeting in that club. I think the lighting works really well in those areas. So it fits right in with my aesthetics and my taste for that sort of thing. But I think that Excuse you.
Yeah, I know. Well, that's what happens when you're sick.
That's right. You are sick. I forgot about that. So I think that neon works pretty well. What about you? I mean, what did you think for Atomic Blonde? Is the neon too much?
No, I've said before when we were reviewing Ghost in the Shell, I like the style.
How about the graffiti layover for the transitions between, East and West Berlin or past and present?
Well, by past and present, you're talking about days, a couple of days, so it's not that big of a...
Yeah.
You're making it sound like it's years difference. Like, 20 years later, it's like, this is what happened.
Well, I mean, but the transitions in this are graffiti writing saying, 2 days before, a week later, stuff like that. That's written in almost a block text that you'd find in a comic.
I mean, I think it's a nifty idea because it's going for the graphic novel aesthetic. I think, though, it's way too overdone, though. I think, you don't need to be checking in every time you're hopping between East and West Berlin. You can just tell the difference by how kind of people are acting around there.
One thing that I love about this film is when you see any of the action happening on the streets of Berlin and all of the onlookers are just like, guy getting run over by a car, that's pretty normal. No reaction from them whatsoever. It's great.
Just another day in Berlin.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, they're used to it, I guess. That's supposed to sell the fact the KGB influence in that area. Yeah, whatever. People sniping at us. Just another day. Just keep marching. All right. So, we talked about that. How about the sexual tension between Lorraine and Delphine LaSalle? The lesbianism, if you will.
It really is just there. There's I didn't really. There's nothing meaningful to it. It really is just there.
I gotta say that I think
you get to see some, finger banging action and some.
I'm all about that finger banging.
Little some titty sucking, but other than that, it's like
I mean,
it's
though
I'm more concerned about Lorraine's, ice bath, that like she looks like a football player after a game, like she's got to sit in an ice bath for 3 hours to, you see her do that
unclench
like 5 times, and it's like that is not comfortable.
Well, the thing that I've got to say that I appreciate both Charlize Theron and Sophia Boutella appearing in the buff, because I'm not gonna deny either of them the fact that they're sexy. But at the same time, I do think that lesbianism is really unnecessary for this film. I don't think that what the filmmakers are saying in that it's more of a sense of how...
And I love how you're saying, too, lesbianism. Like, it's like something like you just decide, like...
Lesbianism.
I've just decided to join the cult of lesbianism.
It's a lesbian cult. I don't feel like what the filmmakers are saying, that it's not here to titillate, but it's here to show how Lorraine is not really attached to any one person, that she's using people for information. I don't think that works here. I don't think that's conveyed. I don't really feel like you get the sense that Lorraine doesn't care in some way for Delphine. I know you think differently. You think that she doesn't really care for her.
No,
because not really that much emotional.
No, because when Delphine's like, if you do when you say something truthful, you have like a different squint in your eyes. Like, I should try to be mindful of that. It might get me killed. No, it's total bullshit. I didn't buy that for a second. No.
I disagree. I think that there is something there that they're going for. I feel like that just the way that...
No, just because by the time the film ends, there's nothing... She's over it, and she's happy the mission's over.
Sure, she's over
it. She did her job. She's going back to Langley. When she's talking to John Goodman, it's more like she doesn't get it. She doesn't care. Because the whole crux of the relationship between like her and John Goodman is he calls her in the beginning she calls him a cocksucker under her breath, and he's like, "What'd you say?" And at the end of the film, he's like, "Cocksucker, really?" And she's like, "Yeah, I know. This is what we do. This is what
Yeah, I don't agree with that though. I don't think that you can write that off because first of all, there's been days since she's been dead. She only knew her for a few days. So you're right. I don't think there's a strong connection between them. There's not like a you're my soulmate type bond. But at the same time, I don't agree that there's nothing there between them. I think there's something there. And I think that is a reasoning behind her kind of vengeance-fueled execution of David Percival.
No, because no. This is where you're wrong. He knows the list.
He does know the list.
So that means he knows who Satchel is, which is her.
Yeah, but
so that she's not killing him. Like he didn't have to kill her. She's killing him to cover her tracks and set him up.
The context of that for her saying you didn't have to kill her does not.
Which we should preface that David Percival kills Sophia Boutella.
Right.
Strangles her with a garrote wire while she's in lingerie listening to fucking like a Madonna song with her headset as soon as she calls him up to threaten him like, I know how the game is played. I'm going to slowly pack my shit.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, I don't agree. I don't think the context agrees with your line of thinking. I don't think that that wouldn't even be a line at that point. She wouldn't even have said that to David Percival if there wasn't some sort of attraction there.
No, because again, the whole thing at that point, that whole exchange they're having is like she's about who's double crossing who.
Yeah, but we gotta disagree because
she's playing up like again. He loves to double cross. So does she, and they even bring up. I don't think she meant anything to her. She was using her to get information.
Then why would she say that you didn't have to kill her? Why would she care?
Because she didn't have to. In the grand scheme of things, you don't have to like essentially care for somebody. To be like, you shouldn't have killed him.
Yeah, but I mean that she's a spy. He's a spy. She realizes that sometimes that is the you have to. There's no other option. But here she realized she almost made it a emotional deal, like that you didn't have to.
No,
in terms of spy games, in terms of like what actually happened, yeah, he probably did need to kill her. So there was an emotional stance to her saying that. There was something there.
No,
I gotta disagree with you there. I don't agree with you on that at all.
She didn't give a shit.
I don't know. I guess we'll throw that out to the listeners. What do you think? Did she?
There's nothing in her character shown throughout this film that shows she gives a fuck about anything or anything. She's
I would
doing
actually,
her job.
I mean, I would actually argue that you can't really tell. You can't.
But
really
tell. That makes sense though. Whether again, if she really cares though, at the end of the day, all she's showing is a fucking blank poker face that she doesn't give a fuck.
You got to remember
that's what ends up winning at the end of the day.
But you have to remember too that this story is being told to people from her perspective. So why include it if it doesn't really matter?
Because she's misleading them.
But she's not. She's not.
Yeah, she did. Because
that doesn't matter to them.
Because she lied to them at one point when they asked her if she knew about. I can't remember the specific plot point, but they asked her, like, did you know about this? And we knew she knew about it, and she lied to them. Yeah. So you knew she lied to them. So again, going back to the whole unreliable narrator things, there's things that happen throughout the story that you can, obviously, she was probably lying to them. There's probably several things that we were gained throughout. Because again, essentially what we were told through the Flash, everything's a flashback, essentially, because it's all taking place through this interview standpoint, is probably most of everything she could have told throughout this story is total bullshit.
It could be, and that's why I'm saying why it wouldn't matter if she told that part of the story or not. It wouldn't matter to them. It doesn't matter. So that's why it seems like it's more emotional baggage rather than anything
to make
else.
Him seem like it again. To make him seem more because she had the dirt on him. She had the photographs that showed him meeting with a KGB officer to sell the
True.
The list.
So she didn't need to make him look like any more of a monster because she already had the proof needed to do it. To kill him. It didn't matter if she. But again,
he essentially, as the Departed would call, a bagpipes and bullshit funeral. He got carted off to England in a draped flag casket. he was going to be celebrated as a hero.
He was.
So to point that out, like, hey, he killed. Like, yeah, she may have done something like that would have, incriminate him. But at the same time, she was a French intelligence officer, a member of NATO, an ally of the U.S. and Britain.
Yeah.
MI6, no matter what's really going on, like, isn't really going to be rushing into the forefront to try to have a French agent killed. They might try using deception to throw him off the scent of certain things, but they're not. Again, same thing with like this. It's not like the CIA was setting out to try to kill British officers. They're doing it to fuck with them and to fuck with everyone, so they can try to have an upper hand on both intelligence agencies, the KGB and MI6.
Yeah.
So I mean, again, it wouldn't do any service to MI6. Like, we got to kill a French agent, because if the French caught wind of that, they'd be like, "Hey, one of your agents killed one of ours. We got a really big problem now."
Yeah.
It's not the same thing between if it was a KGB or whatever.
I mean, I think we have to disagree, because I don't know that it's...
You're looking too hard into the boobs.
No,
You're mired down in the lingerie and the boobs, and you're like,
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter if she actually cared for...
No, I mean, it doesn't matter.
Delphine or not, but that's why I'm just arguing with it, because I feel like it does, in the scheme of things, indicate that and I think that there's another reason why they would want to do that, is because for the most part, Lorraine doesn't really have much of a character whatsoever if they didn't give her anything else.
She doesn't have to really have a character, though.
But I mean, you do in a way, because you don't want a completely blank character that the audience follows, because then there's no... I mean, it doesn't matter to the audience. She doesn't matter to them.
She has a character. She's an escape artist, and she drinks fucking 5 fingers of vodka.
Yeah, and I don't think that is strong enough without a human aspect to her to really get an audience to care about her.
You get to see the human. You get to see her black eyes and bruises.
Yeah, I just think that
you don't really get to see James Bond bruised.
I think that the whole Lorraine Delphine thing is added for the audience perspective to actually see her as a person rather than almost like a robot who's just ordered to do these things. You need that human aspect to it to actually care about her in terms of what she's doing and if she is actually... And then there is that human aspect too of you want her to be good even at the end when there's that allusion to her being Satchel and she could possibly have been working with the KGB the whole time. So I think you do need that human aspect to her to make the viewer care about that character. But we agree to disagree. But let's talk about that vodka, because that's a thing that occurs throughout this film, and it's kind of a Russian stereotype. But every character in this film downs a lot of vodka, and we just don't see the appeal. I actually had a glass of vodka on ice tonight, and I don't get it. I don't see the appeal of...
It wasn't Stoli.
It wasn't Stoli, it was vodka.
This movie was sponsored, their entire budget was brought to you by Stoli and Jack Daniels.
But I don't see the appeal of vodka on ice. It's kind of gross. It's syrupy.
Well, that's probably the brand. I don't remember any vodkas that I've ever drank being syrupy.
It's thicker than, I don't know, what I expected, I guess, because I've never really had vodka straight because it's a miserable experience all around.
Yeah.
But I did have it tonight, and I wouldn't say that I hated it, but I wouldn't say that it did anything for me. There was no value to me doing it. I would much rather have a whiskey over ice, and I say that ice being a frozen block of rock rather than an actual ice cube, because
pussy.
Well, I don't like water seeping into my whiskey. Yeah, well. So that's why. But I don't see the appeal of this vodka over ice thing. So it's not.
No, but it's a thing that happens commonly in movies where like vodka or whatever, and just they sit there and pour literally 5 fingers worth of it and just sit there and slam it down. It's nobody does that. Least that I know.
Maybe we just don't know cool people. We don't. Know,
I have no interest.
We
in
don't
doing
know
that.
those cool people who are like, "Give me 5 fingers of vodka."
Like, it's just like I don't see the joy
I don't either.
at all.
I don't either.
Like I'll tolerate vodka and like mixed drinks. I love Moscow Mules, but that's because there's so much shit in there. It's like, yeah, all right, it's different as a cocktail. Vodka on its own to me is the devil, but that's because I've had bad experiences myself.
I'm not a huge fan.
Throwing up so hard I blew out blood vessels in both my eyes. But
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of the vodka. So if anybody's watching and you see them downing glasses of vodka, you get ready to have your gag reflex tested.
Like it's almost like when I see like an episode of Intervention and you see like an alcoholic and like they can't find alcohol, so they're fucking drinking like Listerine. I would have a much easier time like slamming Listerine than vodka.
I agree. Vodka's pretty
Much.
Vodka's kind of gross.
Tequila, gin, same thing.
There's gonna be some vehement people listening, and they're like, "Vodka on ice is amazing."
Well, probably if it's not Svedka.
Well, Svedka's not that bad, really.
Your big ass bottle is like $20. That's a sign already that it's not.
It's not Mr. Boston. It was $30.
That's different. Yeah, Mr. Boston's the devil. But
All right, but anyway, we just had to bring that diatribe up because this film makes it looks appealing.
But no, but again, it's the same thing like how they smoke cigarettes. It makes you after you watch like a film like this and how they smoke cigarettes. It's like, man, no wonder why a lot of people smoke cigarettes. They just make it's like watching Cowboy Bebop and you got like Spike sitting there with like a bent cigarette. It's like, oh, he makes that fucking Marlboro look fantastic. Oh. They weren't $12 a pack around here. I'd run to the store and buy a pack right now. But they're not.
Not encouraging smoking, by the way.
I am. You're an adult. Make your own life choices.
All right, so out of 10 glasses of vodka, what would you give Atomic Blonde?
Yes, they stole it.
Oh, I have to narrow it down. I have to say 10 glasses of Stoli vodka.
Was there any Smirnoff in here wandering about?
I'm sorry, I didn't get specific enough. 10 glasses of Stoli on ice.
No, because you can't. They didn't drink Smirnoff. They didn't drink Svedka. There was no Grey Goose, even though I know that wasn't around then. It came out in the 90s, but
Yes, Stoli on ice.
It'd be like saying out of 10 Gentleman Jacks, there was no Gentleman Jack. It was clearly Jack Daniels, There's no Jim Beam or Mila Kunis walking around. This film, I would have loved to see Mila Kunis in this film. Like an Atomic Blonde too, with Mila Kunis.
So 10 glasses of Stoli on ice. What would you give Atomic Blonde?
I'll give it a 7. I like its style. I like the aesthetic. Like you said, I do love the neon 80s. So I have no problem with it. I love the soundtrack. I just think at times it's overused and not used properly. But I still admire the effort. I think the action in this film is well done. And for the most part, there's only a couple. There are a lot of action scenes, but there's only a couple of ones that aren't that great. But for the most part, they're all pretty good. The plot's overly convoluted and it describes itself as an action Cold War thriller. It's not a Cold War thriller. It's an action film. And I think if they just focus more on that and then the thriller, you can just make it like an action spy film.
There's only the mention of Cold War anyway. There's no real...
Well, it's the Berlin Wall falling. That's a Cold War.
Yeah, technically, but when you're thinking Cold War, you're thinking literally embroiled in the Cold War, and that's the end of it. We're getting towards the end of the Cold War. There's any part of the KGB is not really related to Cold War at all.
No, it is. It still is. Because it wasn't like the Berlin Wall didn't fall. There goes the Soviet Union. Still took 3 years.
I'm not saying that, but I'm saying any relation to the actual Cold War itself. It's based on them finding a watch. It has nothing to do with how that affects the Cold War.
Well, it does because again the whole it does because the whole plot is there's a list of agents and they could get killed, whoever has this information, and it's it's MI6, CIA, and the KGB.
Yeah.
Playing off, that's Cold War politics and espionage.
But that wouldn't matter if it was in the Cold War or any other time period. It would still be a thing that you need to track down in terms of secretive...
No, you're right. If that was, like, say, between, like, the CIA, MI6, and, the Russian...
That's what I'm saying.
But
that
again,
aspect of it doesn't really matter in terms of, like, if it's the Cold War or not.
But that's when you do these films. So I'm fine with it. My problem is, like, the whole Berlin... Like, okay, it's only a couple of days before the Berlin Wall falls. This, Germany's going to change because we're going to... they're going to unite back together and the Soviet Union's on the way out. They're so flippant about that whole... Like, the whole Berlin Wall part. They're flipping it about it, but at the same time, they're way overutilizing it. Several, like, news, like, clips and videos from the time, and you get to fucking see, like, the one news anchor shot they have about that event happening, it's fucking Kurt Loder from MTV News giving, like, his, like, 3-second breakdown on it. It's just fucking pathetic. But, I mean, like, so, like, I'm fine with the whole, like, it being set during the Berlin Wall, but you don't need, like, the interludes when she's walking down the street of, like, here's, like, a video splice of, like, what was going on back then. You don't need that context. The context itself is, like, happening when it's about to happen. You don't need to have, like, this, like, whole, like, like, ooh, It's kind of like it's connected to actually to what really happened, even though it's not.
Right.
You don't. Just have it set, like, the Berlin Wall is going to fall. Like, and just... That's part of the backdrop in the setting of the story, not putting it more to the forefront. And, like, because when they constantly were doing that, that was overbearing and, like. So I didn't like that part. I didn't really like at all. I didn't like the constant, like, day passes and, like, here's what's happening at the wall today.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's kind of over the top.
We didn't really talk about either. I think acting-wise, I think everyone in this film is really good. I think Charlize Theron does a great job, mainly just because of her action scenes. She does a great job. She could have been total dog shit acting-wise in this, and I still say she would have done a great job because her, what she was able to do with the fighting and all of that was just really top-notch. But she does a really good job as playing a very disinterested, apathetic character. And again, like, unlike you, I'm fine with that because I think that, again, that's what she, as a spy, that's her modus operandi, is to be aloof and disconnected. Then I think that works for me. And that's where we disagree. You think she's more connected. I think James McAvoy, he's good, but at the same time, he's pretty annoying. As just being like your stereotypical fucking hooligan. I mean, like times he's like comes off as kind of charming and like, ooh, but other times it's like, oh, you're pretty fucking annoying. And John Goodman's great because he's just fucking John Goodman. He's bearded and beautiful and he's ready to take on the world.
And losing weight too.
He's been losing weight for quite a while.
He looks good.
Long time.
Even though he is still relegated to a scene where he's chowing down on
a sandwich. He's like, you want one?
I know.
You're hungry?
I did feel bad for him in that sense because it's almost like it's almost
like it wasn't even actual like it was just like a break in between shots and the camera was still rolling. It's like they just like gave him like a ham sandwich. Like, oh, this is great, Shirley. You want one? Like the food court, it's right.
Well, either that or they were like. He's lost so much weight, and they were still like, well, you're still technically the fat man on set. So here's a sandwich, and, act like the schlub that you are and offer it to people on camera. I felt bad for him in that sense, because he's done a lot of work to lose weight. It's not right to use him as a schlubby man anymore. He's the guy who successfully lost weight, so I applaud him for that. All right. I would actually... I'm going to be the voice of disagreement here. And I'm generally not. Generally a lot more forgiving. But I'm going to give this film a 6. Just because I did not enjoy some of the more musical action sequences. I thought they kind of got grating rather than intriguing. I don't love the flashback sequences that we get. I think that the actual interview is unnecessary. So that's an entire portion of the film that's really not. It doesn't do much for me at all.
Well, after kind of talking about this, I'm starting to find that interview part even more necessary.
You find it more necessary now?
Yeah, it's that just because now it's even building even further onto her being an unreliable narrator, and what happened is what is true.
Right, exactly. I mean, it does. It does make her an unreliable narrator. I don't know.
And you wouldn't get that across if the whole film was taking place in real time.
I don't know how much it's necessary though of her being an unreliable narrator. What does it matter? Well, at the end of the film, what does it matter that she's unreliable? I'm not saying that it's a good or a bad thing. I'm just saying I don't know that that's even necessary for what the film's trying to get across. Because at the end of the film, it doesn't really matter how much she is reliable, because the only thing that we really know for certain is that she was working for the CIA and that she accomplished her mission. So it doesn't even really matter. It doesn't factor into things like how much of what she told was actually truthful or not. I don't know. I mean, I guess
it
that's
would be great too. Like if down the line, like one of those agents from MI6 were like made a visit to Langley, like, "Hey, why are you here?"
Yeah, yeah, and they uncovered her. Yeah, like maybe she tries to stay. That's another thing too about being an atomic blonde, in the sense that how Lorraine has that very platinum blonde hair, is that every time they use her in a mission, it's like she stands out. In the mission where they have to transport spyglass across the border, she stands out. It doesn't matter if they're in a sea of people that are kind of they're marching and they're protesting and rioting. It doesn't matter because none of them are fucking platinum blonde like Charlize Theron is.
To get around that, they had the umbrellas.
Yeah, but they didn't even know that was going to happen. It just kind of happened.
Know that. She did.
Yeah, I just think that was a terrible. It was.
That's why he ends up being the one shooting. It's a spyglass and not the KGB sniper.
Yeah, it's a terrible plan though. No, do not use the blonde woman, the super blonde woman.
Well, she's in Germany.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean they're platinum blonde like she is. It's a terrible idea. I wouldn't recommend it the next time they try that. Export attempt. But so yeah, my 6 out of 10. Music sometimes is annoying. Don't like the flashback plots that rely on the narration of the actual event. And I think that's pretty much that really factors into my lower rating, because I just found those things irritating. And I didn't think that they added up to a storyline that was worth spending that amount of time on. Because this film is, very minimally sub 2 hour film. It's like 1 hour and 56 minutes. And I feel like...
I agree. The film did not nearly need to be 2 hours long.
It runs long in that sense.
It could be 90 minutes. Yeah. It would have been fine.
Yeah, and it needed to be cut down quite a bit. And the other thing that did irritate me a little bit too is just the Suicide Squad graffiti-esqueness. Because the graffiti itself, I don't know if I've never read the graphic novel, so I can't comment on that note. But for the film, the graffiti didn't really fit in with the actual plot line. I would have rather just had...
It fits with the style, though.
It fits with the style, but it doesn't fit with the plot. And I would have rather had just, like, regular font.
Title cards.
Regular cards instead of the graffiti, because it did feel like it was trying to be, like, too much of a pulpy, stylistic film rather than just what it is. Go with the neon... Go with the neon stuff, for sure. In the late 80s, but you don't need the graffiti, because I don't know how much that actually fits. So, but anything else you want to add about Atomic Blonde before we close this episode out?
That's about it.
I think we exhausted it. So what's next week on the agenda?
Well, you said we're going back to horror.
We're going back to horror. I have not picked a film out yet, actually. But I guess we covered like a 60s horror recently. We've covered even earlier horror recently with House on Haunted Hill. So maybe it's time to go 80s horror. I'm thinking I'm going to pick something that's not very common. So we'll see. I haven't picked it out yet, but I definitely will announce it before our next episode. So it'll be my pick. So
can't wait.
It'll be my pick. So maybe I'll even surprise you. You won't know until Tuesday night when we watch it, or Wednesday night when we watch it. Cannibal Holocaust is one of those films that I think everybody needs to see.
I have never seen it, and I would, even though I will one day see it. And I don't think we should do it just because everyone else has done it.
It's one film that everybody needs to see one time. Do you? Is it a good film? Not really. Is it something that like people that regular horror fans will enjoy? Probably not. It's certainly it was definitely a inspiration for like found footage films. I will give it that, and it is definitely in the Mondo style of filmmaking. But I don't think that the atrocities that they committed on film, like really killing monkeys and turtles and stuff like that, I don't think that really warrants actually supporting the film. Because I'm a huge opponent of people actually like using animals within their films. Of like, it's just unnecessary. I understand that it was a different time and people were like, well, I don't really know what to do, so just use a real rat. You know what I mean? But at the same time, I know that me filming, I wouldn't be able to do that. I wouldn't be able to put up with it. So it's kind of surprising to me too that the actors were just like okay with it. They were just like, oh, you're going to flamethrower that rat? Okay. So it's surprising, but I do think that everybody needs to see Cannibal Holocaust once. Will we cover it on the podcast? I don't know.
I would say never. Just because, again...
It's also not something that is really easily covered on a podcast. Like, there's not much... I wouldn't say there's much to talk about.
No, I think there is. I think, again, like I said, it's just been done to death.
Yeah.
Anyone that does, like, a horror podcast has covered it. It's kind of why even when we were doing the George Romero memorial episode, I wanted to do something different than Night. Because, again, it's like... Even though, yes, you know...
We have our own take on it.
But, again, there's just been so much said on it.
Yeah.
You could...
Maybe we'll do like Faces of Death or something. No.
I got an 80s movie to do, but it's not it's John Carpenter film, but it's not
obscure. It's not different.
No, it's obscure, but it's not a horror film.
Oh.
It's a martial arts film.
I know what you're talking about.
Because that's something we actually haven't even done yet, and this is a martial arts film.
I don't know though. We've done too much action in the past few weeks, so we'll do a horror, and then we'll talk about that after.
We'll do a couple of horror.
Yeah. We'll get back to
because
our roots.
And if you don't know, it's Big Trouble in Little China.
Yeah,
and we have talked about that before because that's one of the Carpenter films you have not seen.
Yep.
It's a shame.
But we'll do horror for the next episode for sure. So stick with us. Thanks for listening to Blood and Black Rum Podcast. We hope you enjoyed it. Hope you have actually seen Atomic Blonde, because otherwise we ruined it for you. Let us know what you thought about Atomic Blonde. You can find us on Twitter at Blood and Black Rum. You can find us on Facebook, www.facebook.com/Blood and Black Rum Podcast. We also have a group on there, so join our group, and this facilitates discussions. We have a website, bloodandblackrumpodcast.wordpress.com. You can find us on SoundCloud, iTunes, Stitcher, and any other podcast app. You can also email us at bloodandblackrumpodcast@gmail.com and let us know what you think about the show, any other episode that you've listened to. Give us recommendations for a new film, and we'll take all of those into consideration. And then finally, we have a Patreon page, patreon.com/bloodandblackrumpodcast. There you can donate to the show and give us any sort of monetary donation that you so choose. And just remember that it is a monthly donation, so that's going to be coming out of your account monthly. So don't give anything that you can't afford to give. But we appreciate anything that you can send our way to help fund the podcast. Thank you for listening to Blood and Black Rum Podcast, and we'll see you next week for a horror film, one that we'll announce at a later date. Take care.
See you later.